home.
Welcome back. We're coming to you from the Ontario Science Centre this week for all the pre-eclipse fun. Joining me again is senior scientist Bob Lincourt. Thanks again for being here with us. So you have all sorts of fun stuff that we can do leading up to the big day.
Yes, on April 6th and 7th, we will be having an astronomy hub here, and we will have all kinds of activities for visitors to do. So we're going to be able to make some electrical circuits. So this circuit here, we have the sun, we have the moon, and as the light comes on, you can move the moon over the sun, and you can see what it'll feel like with your own eclipse.
Right.
And we also have, pinhole viewers that you can make at home if you don't have a pair of solar eclipse glasses to look at the sun. You can also make your own viewer. So take a cereal box, put on a little piece of foil, cut a hole, put a few pieces of foil, and an opening here, poke a hole. And when you're looking at the sun, this is important. The sun has to be behind you.
Right.
Because you're looking at the shadow of the sun behind. So it's pretty cool, another indirect way of looking at the sun.
Yes.
We'll also be making some fantastic bead bracelets. These are UV sensitive beads.
Nice.
That when you're out in the sun, they change color. So I have a UV light here, and we can see how they're changing color.
Nice.
Right?
Yes.
And so here's a great way to figure out what happens during the eclipse. Will these go back to being clear again during the eclipse?
Right.
Another indirect method of knowing that there's an eclipse.
Yes.
And other household items like cauldrons or slotted spoons, you can use them to capture the shadow of the sun, and that's another indirect way to look at the eclipse. So lots of activities happening here on April 6th and 7th. Come check us out.
Yes.
We also have additional resources on our webpage, OntarioScienceCentre.ca, where you can download activity sheets, watch animations, and learn about the eclipse.
Amazing. So many fun things to do, and you've got amazing programming happening all year round.
Yes, absolutely. We are open on the 8th. We don't have a special event happening, but come join us on the weekend to learn about the eclipse.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us.
You're welcome, Shannon.
Thanks. And that's our show for you this week. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks to the Ontario Science Centre for inviting us inside. We hope you enjoy the total solar eclipse and do it safely. We'll see you soon.
Finding the submarine capabilities we're going to need to patrol and protect our Arctic in the coming decades. That is investments that Canada is going to be making in our Canadian Armed Forces, but we haven't yet defined exactly what types of submarines and how they're going to be deployed. So we haven't put in the money that Canada will be spending on submarines in the coming years into this calculation. We are investing in institutional strength for our Canadian Armed Forces, but we also know, for example, that getting our recruitment numbers up is going to be important. We're not quite at where our targets are right now, but in the coming years, we will want to increase the size of the Canadian Armed Forces to meet the challenges of the world we're meeting, and that is going to require more investments. So even as we project getting up to 1.76% of GDP in the coming years, we know there is more to come over the coming years as Canada continues to step up in a more uncertain and, quite frankly, more dangerous world.
In this new policy statement, this document, there's a lot of talk about building up our North American defenses, our commitments to NORAD, Arctic sovereignty, but there is very little discussion of what we're going to do in regards to peacekeeping. What does this mean for the future of Canada when it comes to peacekeeping?
I think the world has changed in some very significant ways over the past years. We've seen, whether it's the rise of authoritarian states, the pushback by Russia, China, and others on the rules-based order that has kept us safe and stable and prosperous as a world for the past 70 years, that requires us to be more active in new and different ways. Canada will continue to be there, to step up around the world, including as part of UN missions where necessary. But whether it's a UN mission or a NATO mission or a NORAD engagement, the capabilities must be there. And that's why our investments in some really important institutional capabilities for the Canadian Armed Forces will apply across the broad range of missions that we ask our Canadian Armed Forces to engage in.
Next question.
Hi, Prime Minister. Tom Parry, CBC. Procurement seems like this constant problem for the Canadian Forces, and I know that 7 years ago you made a number of commitments in your previous defense policy. Some of them have come through, some of them haven't. So what can you point to in this policy review that says, okay, we're going to speed up procurement for the Canadian Forces?
Procurement has always been a challenge because there are two sometimes competing pressures on procurement. We obviously want to get the best possible equipment for our Canadian Armed Forces at the best possible price to taxpayers. But we also often want to build up our own production capacities in Canada to make sure there are good jobs for Canadians as we develop tools and equipment needed by the Canadian Armed Forces. Getting that balance right of encouraging industrial benefits for Canada while making sure we're getting the largest amount of the right equipment for our Canadian Armed Forces is a tension that we're going to continue to work through. But the commitment in this update is very much focused on learning from some of the very real challenges that our Canadian Armed Forces and the Department of Defense have faced over the past decades around procurement, to accelerate it, to speed it up, and to make it more transparent and reliable for our forces. This is a significant commitment where, as you say, we have made advances on and where we need to do more.
And on recruitment, what's wrong with the recruiting system? I mean, I guess that's a big question, but are we not getting the right applicants? Are people just not interested in joining? Is the system just not working? And could you also just expand on that point you made about technology allowing more Canadians to serve in the military?
I'll actually turn to the Minister of Defence for more specifications on that. But in terms of recruitment, we saw, particularly after the pandemic, a dip, but it's a dip in recruitment numbers that has happened around the world. Most of our allies are facing the same challenges. In a recent conversation with the Chief of Defence Staff, Wayne, pointed out that the numbers are getting better, and that is good news. And because we've been working very, very hard on creating more recruitment opportunities, demonstrating that the Canadian Armed Forces is an effective and powerful way of serving one's country and building a life for themselves. That's where $100 million in more childcare spaces for CAF members, almost $300 million for better housing for CAF members is going to be part of helping with the recruitment, but also is this commitment we're making right now as Canada to invest $73 billion more over the coming 20 years in the kinds of support, resources, and tools that our Canadian Armed Forces need. But I'm happy to turn to Minister Blair for a few more comments on this.
If I may, just very briefly, with respect to recruitment, we've seen over the past number of years, actually more people have left than have actually joined the Canadian Armed Forces. And we've done a pretty deep dive into why that's happening. I very sincerely believe that there are Canadians and permanent residents right across this country who want an opportunity to serve their country and to serve in the Canadian Armed Forces. And we've got to make sure that we modify our processes to ensure that they are given that opportunity quickly. And if someone has to wait 18 months, they've moved on to other opportunities. So we've got to go faster. And at the same time, we've seen some of our processes that because it's mostly a paper-based system, it's not digitized, we believe that the application of technology is going to help us speed up those processes. I can assure you of the absolute unwavering commitment of the Canadian Armed Forces. They understand people are our greatest asset, and we need to get the right people with the right skill sets into the Canadian Armed Forces. And at the same time, we're working really hard, as the Prime Minister has already mentioned, to create a supportive work environment for every member of the service so that they can can access affordable housing, that for a family they can get access to medical services and child care. We have work to do, and we are absolutely committed to doing that work. We now have the resources to apply in that work, but everywhere I've traveled across the country, people have talked about some of the challenges they face in service. Our job is to help manage those challenges so that when people make the choice to serve their country, that choice is well supported by the Canadian Armed Forces and by the Government of Canada.
Thank you, Minister. Next question.
Tara Deschamps, the Canadian Press. The AUKUS security pact is reportedly preparing to expand its second phase. Is Canada seeking to join the alliance in Pillar 2?
Yes, we are already observers in one of the working groups in Pillar 2 of AUKUS, and we have had excellent conversations with both the US, the UK, and Australia as how we can work even closer. And quite frankly, it's good news that both Canada and New Zealand are going to be joined by Japan, that is engaging more closely in AUKUS conversations as well around Phase 2. I think it's really important that allies, particularly across the Indo-Pacific, work together in stronger and tighter ways, and those Canadian conversations with our partners will continue.
Given your focus on Arctic sovereignty and the need for under-ice capability, I'm wondering, wouldn't nuclear-capable submarines make more sense at this stage, and will that be part of a longer-term plan?
That is certainly what we will be looking at as to what type of submarines are most appropriate for Canada's responsibility in protecting the longest coastline in the world and certainly the longest Arctic coastline in the world. We recognize that with climate change, the opening of the Northwest Passage to ship traffic is going to require a lot more capabilities by Canada to demonstrate and responsibly patrol its own internal waters, and that's where we have framed out in this policy update a need to lean in carefully to determine what kinds of submarines we're going to need for the coming years and how best to procure them.
Thank you. Last question.
Hi, Prime Minister. Mercedes Stephenson with Global News. This was a defense policy review that was years in the making, and it makes no secret of how urgent the changes that are required are in terms of especially attempts by our adversaries in the Arctic. Despite that, most of the spending is significantly backloaded, not only beyond the next election, but the election after that. If this is so urgent and knowing how long it takes to procure things for the Canadian Armed Forces, why isn't your government investing more upfront faster?
$8 billion over the next 5 years is a significant investment in our armed forces right now, but recognizing the need and the reality of constantly changing systems and challenges in the world, which is why we've put in a 4-year cycle on the next defense policy updates to align with our national security updates. These are important pieces of making sure that we are meeting the moment we're in right now. There are a lot of concrete investments that are going to be flowing right now as investments that we've made over the past, whether it was the $38 billion modernization of NORAD, whether it was the $19 billion to buy 88 F-35s. These are investments that we've been making to deliver as quickly as possible for the women and men of the Canadian Armed Forces and our requirements to be there for our allies.
A lot can change in 5 years for your government. It was buying the F-35. You're trying to project future threats. One of the things I noticed in the document, and then there was no follow-up on, so I'm hoping to find out what it's about, was the Canadian Armed Forces helping domestic law enforcement in Canada. What does that involve?
Happy to turn to Minister Blair for that. Bill. Yeah. He's an expert in both.
I've done a bit in both. First of all, in the National Defence Act, one of the responsibilities of the Canadian Armed Forces, in addition to all of the extraordinary work and challenges that we place before them, is to be there when required to assist what we call civil authority. And so that legislation, we need to have that capacity. We also, I think it's important to acknowledge, we've called upon the Canadian Armed Forces many times over the past 3 years to help Canadians respond to wildfires, for floods, for hurricanes. When Canadians needed someone to come to their rescue, we turn to the Canadian Armed Forces, and I have to ensure that they have the capability to continue to be there for Canadians, and at the same time, we also have to acknowledge that when we call upon them to do that, it can take them away from other training opportunities or other deployments. And so growing the Canadian Armed Forces, making sure they have that training and capability to always still be there for Canadians is an important responsibility.
Thank you. That concludes today's press conference.
We have been listening in here on CBC News Network to the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister, Chrystia Freeland, and then also the Minister of National Defence, Bill Blair, speaking at CFB Trenton, giving an update on Canada's defence policy, announcing some $73 billion in investments over a 20-year period with $8.1 billion over the next 5 years. We were hearing there from the Prime Minister that Canada, of course, and other countries around the world are now in a more uncertain and more unstable world, was what he said, saying that there are threats from certain actors, in particular naming Russia and China, saying that they have been pushing back on the rules-based order. Also talking about the role that climate change, of course, will play in this update to Canada's defence spending. Also saying that as part of these goals, these spending goals, that Canada's defence spending to GDP ratio is expected to rise to 1.76% by 2029-2030. Of course, that NATO commitment of 2% is something that they say that they are reaching towards. For more on this, I want to bring in the CBC's Olivia Stefanovich, because she was also listening along with us from Ottawa, and she joins us now live. So, Olivia, hoping that you can take us through a little bit more of what we just heard in this announcement. We heard, for example, the Prime Minister saying that one of the most urgent threats that Canada is facing is to its sovereignty in the Arctic and the North. So maybe take us through some of the numbers and a little bit more of what we heard.
Sure. So this is a much anticipated announcement by the federal government. It introduced its defense policy back in 2017 and promised tens of billions of dollars in new military spending at that time. Now, a lot has changed in the world since 2017, including the 2022 full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russia. We're also seeing increasing military activity by China and, of course, the Israel-Hamas war. So a lot has changed, Hillary. And so Canada decided to review its policy back in 2022 and was planning to introduce an update to this defense policy in that year, but this was delayed. So this is 2 years in the making, finally getting the details today. And what the Prime Minister announced, as you say, is $73 billion promised in new military spending over the next 20 years. And much of this will be targeted towards Canada's Arctic, where the effects of climate change are being felt 4 times compared to the global average. And so what does that look like? Well, the Prime Minister says the Northwest Passage will see much more activity, especially from China and Russia in the coming years. And to protect Canada's north from potential threats, Canada, the government says, wants to invest in much more equipment for the north to protect itself, surveillance on the land, air, and sea, new helicopters, submarines, a new fleet of early warning aircraft, a whole lot of new military technology that will be targeted towards Canada's north, Hillary, to protect it from these increasing threats. Now, this spending, the $73 billion over 20 years, will bring Canada's defense spending to GDP ratio up to 1.76%, which is closer to its NATO target of 2%, but still does not hit it. Right now, Canada's defense spending compared to GDP is about 1.3%. So this is a significant rise with today's announcement, but again, does not actually meet that goal yet, Hillary. Now, we also heard some questions in the press conference about issues with recruitment, since Canada's military saw a dip in its recruitment after the pandemic. The government says it wants to improve this by introducing new measures for childcare, housing, to get more people to join Canada's military. We also heard about the challenges of procurement, because it's all good to announce this new money for new military equipment, but if you can't procure it in a fast manner, that's an issue. So the Prime Minister said that the government wants to learn from the issues in the past and to accelerate procurement to make sure there are no issues going forward.
Olivia, thank you for this. We do appreciate this. The CBC's Olivia Stefanovich for us there in Ottawa. We are going to turn now to our top story today, the solar eclipse. Millions of people in Mexico, the U.S., and Canada are on the move, trying to get into position. And for those in what's called the path of totality, it's a chance to see the moon completely blocking the sun for a brief time. Wherever you are, if you observe today's magic moments, you should only do so with the proper glasses, of course, to protect your eyes. One of the Canadian cities in the path of totality is Niagara Falls, Ontario. Waves of tourists and sky gazers have descended on the famed tourist town. And by the time the moon fully covers the sun at 3:18 local time this afternoon, hundreds of thousands of people are expected to be there. We've got extensive coverage from within the path of totality here in Canada. Right now in Niagara Falls is our senior science correspondent, Nicole Martellero. And then we also have Chris Ensing. He is just down the road, a ways from Nicole, near Point Pelee National Park, when the eclipse will first, or where the eclipse, I should say, will first hit in Canada. So welcome to you both. Let's start here with Nicole, because of course she is the CBC's resident science or space fan, I should say, and she's joining us now from Niagara Falls, Ontario, with more on this. So Nicole, take us through a little bit of what the conditions are. I think we should maybe start with that because, of course, there have been some concerns about possible cloud cover. What's the situation at this point?
Well, right now it is overcast. It's windy and a little cold, but it's we had a little bit of excitement because we saw blue sky. We had a little clearing, little bits of clearing, but it is still overcast. We're hoping that the cloud will move out and that we'll still see the sun at some point. So fingers crossed over here.
And of course, Nicole, we know that this is so exciting for so many people, yourself included, because of your background here, because of everything that you know about space. We've had you on set so many times to talk about different launches, for example, getting us set for the upcoming lunar mission. So talk to us a little bit about why this is so special to you today, to witness a total eclipse.
Well, first of all, we are so unique. Earth is this amazing planet, and it's amazing for its life and for everything on it, but also we're the only planet that gets a total solar eclipse. The moon and the sun are just perfectly apart, like in terms of distance and in terms of relative size. So we're really fortunate to be able to enjoy that. But also, you know, you're watching astronomy in action. You're watching the solar system in action. Now, I actually went to see it, the 2017 solar eclipse, and followed it for CBC, and it was supposed to be great weather. Unfortunately, we got clouded out. It was a thunderstorm, but you know what? Even as the thunderstorm ended, the clouds started to break apart. You could see that shadow coming towards you. It was a really bizarre experience, watching that coming, and then you're in the shadow, and you see it looks like sunsets on either side of you. I think it was really because of the cloud cover that also made that particularly interesting. And then, you know, it moves out, and there was a lot of hooting and hollering, and people were really excited, and that was with clouds. So it is something really special, and people really need to experience it to see for themselves.
Well, and I can see just based on everyone behind you that the crowds are growing larger and larger. There are more people gathering at Niagara Falls. Of course, we will be checking in with you throughout the day, but for now, thank you for this. CBC senior science reporter Nicole Martellero for us there in Niagara Falls, Ontario. Well, one of those fortunate places to see the total eclipse is Point Pelee National Park near Kingsville, Ontario, and that's where we find the CBC's Chris Ensing. So, Chris, I know that just a short time ago, there was some information put out about the park. The national park is at capacity for today, but as you were telling us a little bit earlier, this location where you are, it might end up being one of the real bright spots today in terms of that path of totality in Canada. So tell us a little bit about what you have been seeing in anticipation of all of this afternoon.
Yeah, Hillary, it was interesting to listen to Nicole talk about the eclipse with the clouds and how it was helpful and maybe looks a little bit different, and it was still a good experience. They're not really too worried about the clouds out here. Let's do a quick pan up just to take a look at the sky right now. We are sitting pretty. Now, I've been asked not to make too big of a deal out of it because we want this to be the way it is when the eclipse happens later today. 3:12 is when we're going to experience totality here in Kingsville. Like you mentioned, just outside of Point Pelee National Park, that's where people have been lined up since the gates opened this morning. Hundreds of vehicles trying to get into that park, which is the southernmost tip of mainland Canada. 7 700 allowed in. They have hit the peak there, so people are spreading out now to find different spaces to take this in. And just like this park I'm at here now, one of the things that's interesting, we don't have the clouds. We don't really have the crowds either yet. We're in a good spot here as far as people still arriving, a lot of parking spots that are available here. Part of that could be because locally here, kids are getting out of schools a little bit earlier instead of the day off. So a lot of the families, I imagine, are starting to pack up and get ready to go to locations they've picked out, but still a lot of prime viewing space for people that are within that Windsor area who are trying to catch totality here out in the county.
So very, very exciting stuff there, Chris. Have you been speaking with people? Have you been hearing anything from them in particular about maybe how far they've come, what it is they're hoping to see, what this might even mean to them today?
Yeah, the big thread of all this has sort of been that idea, you see a car parked, you roll down the window, you ask them, you knock on, hey, what's going on? Why are you here? And they say, I want to see an event I've never seen before. This is important to me. It's special. I want to see it. Where are you from? Toronto area. Why didn't you go to Niagara Falls? We looked at the forecast, we saw what it was going to be, got in the car and said, let's make the trip all the way down to the southernmost tip of Canada. They're excited about what's in front of them now, say that it's worth the drive, especially because of being able to hit totality, to experience that on this day, cloud-free, potentially.
We woke up around 7. We stayed in London last night, so drove about 2 hours to come here. So
where's home?
Toronto.
Toronto. Oh, so you had Niagara Falls. You had plenty of options, but you're choosing here. Why here?
We were checking the weather in a bunch of places and made a game time decision this morning, like where we were going to drive. And this is the clearest spot.
Where are you coming from?
Macomb, Michigan.
Macomb, Michigan? All the way across?
About an hour and a half, yeah.
So why did you choose here? Why was Point Pelee the place, or Pelee National Park the place to be?
It was the furthest in the path of totality that we could get without going to Ohio, because who wants to go to Ohio? So it's a beautiful, natural, wonderful thing to see. We have some badminton sets in the back, some, what do we buy?
Pickleball.
Pickleball.
Ohio catching a tough stray there, but people are having a lot of fun, and that joy is really being felt. A lot of people just geeking out over the possibility to be part of this experience and to do it in a place where they're able to experience this on what's turned out to be a beautiful, almost summer type day. I got this little light jacket on, but I think we're going to be in t-shirts by the time this thing hits in the afternoon. It is just absolutely glorious to be in this spot for a historic day like this.
Well, Chris, like you say, all those people who made that game time decision to head towards Kingsville, where you are, rather than maybe some of the other parts of the province where they're expecting large crowds, I'm sure they're pretty happy at this point with the call that they made. Thanks for this. The CBC's Chris
one of the best
Ensing.
kept secrets out here.
One of the best, no longer though, no longer a kept secret, but for now, thank you for this. Chris Ensing for us there in Kingsville, Ontario. Okay, so for everything you need to know about protecting your eyes during the eclipse, we have brought in Shaina Nensi. She's Vice President of the Ontario Association of Optometrists, and she joins us now with more on this. So Shaina, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Hillary.
So for weeks now, of course, we've been speaking about the fact that there are schools across North America that are closed today. We were even just hearing a little bit of that from my colleague Chris, because of concerns that people, students, kids might look at the sun directly and damage their eyes. And we have been hearing about these potential dangers, but can you tell us why? Why is it so dangerous to look directly at the sun during an eclipse in particular?
Great question, Hillary. So usually the sun is quite bright. So if we do look at it, we would feel discomfort and pain right away, and we wouldn't be able to stare at it for very long. But during the eclipse, part of the sun is, of course, covered by the moon, and if you look up at it, it's not as bright, so you don't have that same instinct to look away. And that also means that you'll get those direct UV rays directly into your eyes with less pupil constriction because it's not as bright. And we can damage both the front surface, the cornea of the eye, and you can also damage the retina, the back surface of the eye that's responsible for sending all those visual messages to your brain. So we really want to make sure that we are wearing protective eyewear when we are viewing the eclipse.
And my understanding here is that you won't necessarily feel pain, correct? So even if you don't think you're doing damage, you could be doing damage.
That's correct. You won't necessarily feel pain, and you might not even notice any visual effects right away. It can take, over 12 hours for that damage to become noticeable. And so we do recommend that if you start to see any blurry spots in your vision, if you start to see any black or missing spots in your vision, that you do visit your optometrist and get your eyes checked out.
And what about for kids here? Because, like we say, a lot of kids are going to be super curious about this and maybe don't have quite a grasp like their parents might on why this could be dangerous. What would you say to parents, people out there who have young children who are going to be looking at this today?
You definitely want to supervise your children during the entire time that they are viewing the eclipse. The most important thing is to make sure that they are wearing their eclipse glasses with the proper solar shields. And as long as they're looking through the eclipse glasses, it is safe to look up at the eclipse. The only time it's safe to remove the glasses is during totality. So if you are going to be in a location that will be experiencing totality, you can remove your glasses during that time. But it is then important to know how long totality will last in that area. So as soon as you start to see the glimmer of the sun return, then you do need to put your glasses back on. So I would just recommend that parents watch their kids and supervise them during the eclipse to make sure that they are protecting their eyes.
Okay, and if you're like me and you only thought to order some glasses off the internet a couple days ago, and you're maybe a little bit concerned about whether or not those glasses are going to actually protect you, how do you know? How do you know that the glasses that you have purchased or been given are going to be safe?
Great question. So Eclipse glasses should come with an ISO certification. There should be a symbol as well as an ISO number on the inside, which is 12312-2. And that's how you know that your glasses are certified and safe for the Eclipse. Now, the front surface of the lenses for these glasses can scratch. So if your kids have been playing with them or if you happen to have thrown them in your purse, there is a way to check to make sure that they are still functioning correctly. And that would be to hold them up, to look right through them at a bright light source, and you shouldn't be able to see anything. It should be completely black if we are going to look through the viewers, and you should only be able to see the sun. So if you can see any other light sources, that means that either the lens has gotten damaged or scratched, but either way, they're not safe to use, and you should find another pair.
Okay, so some really important advice there. Maybe you start by looking at the pot lights in your kitchen or something like that. You don't necessarily test them out on the sun just to see if they are safe or not. What if someone has been watching us today and is maybe getting excited and is thinking, oh, well, I didn't buy anything ahead of time. I don't actually have solar eclipse glasses. What can they do to watch or safely watch the solar eclipse?
Great question. So there are some things you can use around your home to watch the eclipse. Now, that won't be watching it directly. It would be creating a pinhole camera and a projection system to be able to watch the eclipse at home without glasses. So one of the things that you can do, very straightforward, is find yourself 2 pieces of paper, and you just want to poke a hole right in the middle of one, and you're going to use this as a projector system. You're going to stand with the eclipse at your back, and you're going to have the sunlight shine through the hole onto a second sheet of paper that you would use as your projection surface. And you just hold it up and you will see the reflection or the projection of the eclipse, and you'll see the crest just like you would if you were looking at it through a pair of solar eclipse glasses. If you don't want to use just one light source, you can also use a colander that you might have at home, and it'll project multiple of the eclipse images onto your makeshift screen. So there are many options that you can use at home to experience the eclipse if you didn't get a pair of glasses. You just want to make sure not to look at the eclipse directly and to use one of these projection systems instead.
Well, Shaina, this is all such great information to have. This is so great that you were able to sort of come in and show us a little bit of how we can all safely look at the eclipse today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Shaina Nensi is Vice President of the Ontario Association of Optometrists.
We are calling it iPhone.
Why would anybody want a phone without a keyboard?
In the Ford Escape, there's no such thing as an aimless drive.
Every year, millions of noses are ghosted by their plugins. Introducing Airwig Vibrant, with a new advanced plugin that pulses scent for staying power, up to 60 days. Plus, a fragrance boost button. Our noses won't be ignored again.
Welcome to McDonald's. What can I get for you?
A chicken cheeseburger.
Sorry, Liliardi, that's not on the menu.
It is not! The new remixed chicken cheeseburger. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Batiste Dry Shampoo for fabulous early morning texture. For an after-workout hair refresh. For video-ready volume that can't be muted. For an instant refresh, just add Batiste Dry Shampoo.
Breaking news that shapes your world. Reporting from the scene onto your screens. It's news you can trust, delivered when you want, where you want. On Canada's News app. Download the free CBC News app.
It makes sense that they get a larger share, or does it?
Welcome to the Greenbelt.
All of this, just single detached homes?
Yes.
What do we know? I think we can explain.
About that with Andrew Chang. Watch free on CBC Gem.
You're looking live at Ottawa, where the public inquiry into foreign interference in the most recent Canadian elections has resumed. Today, it is hearing from the people who had the responsibility of looking for signs of foreign interference in the 2019 and 2021 elections. CBC's Janice McGregor is covering the inquiry and joins me live. So, Janice, we learned on Friday that foreign interference was going on during the last federal election. So walk us through what you have heard so far.
It's been fascinating to hear from people who had a very difficult decision to make. A panel of key senior civil servants, we're talking people at the deputy minister level in charge of departments, but nonpartisan. And in both 2019 and in 2021, they were receiving regular security briefings. We heard not only just documents, but also kind of weekly meetings. They often sat down together to consider what they were hearing with one kind of big task. The decision of whether or not to alert the public. The decision of whether or not what was going on was important enough that they would say something. And this obviously is a huge decision, because were they to have issued an alert about foreign interference, of course, that could influence what voters might do. It could alarm people. You want to make sure you're not doing that unnecessarily. And of course, if they disclose something pertaining to a specific foreign actor, that could have a big impact on Canada's diplomatic relations with that country. So the threshold set very, very high for sounding an alert. They did not sound an alert in either 2019 or 2021. And we've reviewed the reasons why they did not for 2019. First thing this morning, now they are going over the evidence of foreign interference in the 2021 election and kind of probing their thinking and their rationale for still not saying anything, despite what we now know to be a fairly, medium-long list of various things going on in that election that were cause for concern, especially at the riding level. But here is the former clerk of the Privy Council, Janice Charette, explaining their end conclusion.
We had a clear understanding that if there was information that any member of the site task force thought needed to come to us, that they would do so. They would kind of ring the bell, and we would be able to have an ad hoc meeting, and that any member of the panel could also call for an ad hoc meeting. It was my job as the chair to kind of schedule the regular meetings, but we were available and could meet any time outside of that. We were receiving these daily reports. That could, for instance, it did not in 2021.
What we understand now about this process is that no one had a veto over the decision to sort of alert the public that this was meant to be a consensus-style decision-making body, this panel. But the most interesting thing we heard about the 2019 election, I think anyway, is the discussion about what was going on in the Toronto riding of Don Valley North. Yes, the panel was told about some of the concerns with the nomination meeting that picked now independent MP Han Dong. But they did not feel that the evidence in front of them was corroborated and substantive enough that it warranted alerting the public. What did happen, though, and this is kind of new and emerging today, is we can now tell you that based on that intelligence, representatives that had security clearance from Liberal Party of Canada were briefed by CSIS about that. Now, what did those senior Liberal campaign officials do with that information? Because they've never really previously disclosed that they knew as far back as 2019 about some of the intelligence information pertaining to that nomination. So we'll watch for how that unfolds as the week goes on. The other thing I'll say, we are going to hear from national security advisors to the Prime Minister as the afternoon proceeds, but we are also watching the timing as all these cross-examinations unfold of these key people. Marie-Josée Hogg, the Commissioner, is going to try and take a break right around the time of totality here in Ottawa at 3:25. I tell you, I just looked out the window. It's kind of cloudy. Nevertheless, if all this foreign interference stuff is seeming a bit heavy, they are trying to give some levity to the proceedings. They're going to time that afternoon break right around the time when you want to be looking at the sky.
That's where everyone will be focused today. Okay, Janice, thank you for this. CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa.
Two pieces of seasoned chicken for $2.99 on a Tuesday? How freaking dare they? My 11 herbs and spices, my original recipe. They must be out of their minds. Enjoy. And they're giving it away for $2.99. In this economy?
Frizz, dryness, breakage. New Dove 10-in-1 Serum Hair Mask with patented peptide complex fortifies hair bonds, helps reverse 10 visible signs of damage in 1 minute. Keep living. We'll keep preparing.
Do you love deli meat but are careful about your sodium intake? Try new Schneider's Deli Meat. The delicious taste you expect from Schneider's, now with 25% less sodium. They're crafted in Canada and made with only Schneider's premium cuts of meat, and they're an excellent source of protein. Perfect for elevating sandwiches, charcuterie boards, and more. Plus, they come in convenient, resealable packaging. Try all 5 new deli meats from Schneider's. Trusted by Canadians for over 130 years. Brand power helping you buy better.
I'll deal with this tomorrow.
You won't.
It's ripe in here.
My eyes are watering.
Look how crusty this is. It's just too much.
Not with this.
Good advice.
When stains and odors pile up, it's got to be Tide.
What's up at DQ? That new barbecue smokehouse cheddar signature stack burger is a smoky trifecta.
Try what?
Trifecta. Smoky barbecue sauce, smoked cheddar-y deliciousness, and applewood smoked bacon. And that's what's up at DQ. Happy tastes good.
I was standing, you were there, 2 worlds collided, and they could never tear us apart. I was standing, you were there.
An EnerCare expert can find ways to make any home run smoothly. From heating and cooling, to home comfort solutions like water heating and water purification. Our technicians can help with affordable solutions to keep your home comfortable and problem-free. And with 65 years of helping Ontarians, we'll always be here when you need us.
EnerCare, experts at home.
You're looking at a live shot of Niagara Falls, Ontario. Hundreds of thousands of people are gathered there to watch a total solar eclipse. North America will experience it for the first time in 7 years, and it's something that won't happen again for 2 decades. One group in New Brunswick is working on a project to guarantee a cloud-free eclipse view, no matter the weather. CBC's Brett Ruskin is in Florenceville, Bristol, which will have totality for almost as long, Brett, as Niagara Falls. So what can you tell us about this project?
Hillary, I'm squinting, and yes, it's a little bit uncomfortable here, but I think that lots of people are jealous of the conditions that we have here because they are indeed excellent. But preparations were underway years ago to prepare for a possibly cloudy day today, to send a telescope above the cloud level with a balloon, to send it up there, and so that's what is in the works. So I have Don Pluis here, a professor at the U of T, and one of the mentors, one of the volunteers. Is that right, Don?
That's right.
So can we talk about what's going to activity happening here. Can we wander over this way, perhaps?
Sure.
Let's see. So this is, this is a tower that's 6.5 feet tall or so.
So this pink thing you're seeing here is the payload for the balloon. On the very top of it, you might be able to see a little tripod and a camera. It's a specialized camera that's going to take images of the sun, even as the payload is bouncing around underneath the tether of the balloon.
And so this basically, if we walk a little bit closer, so this is going to be dangling from a balloon. And how do you make sure that it stays focused at the sun, essentially?
So in order for that to happen, the payload has got a device that can determine the orientation, the pitch and the roll and the yaw of the payload every few milliseconds. It sends information about that and the known location of the sun, which is changing as a function of time. It sends that information to a little mirror, exactly this mirror I have right here, and that mirror is capable of rocking around in response to all those data so as to reflect the image of the sun back up into the telescope, regardless of how the payload is oriented.
And then that's a neat little idea to, no matter where it goes, that mirror is going to send that sun image to the telescope. And then that image is going to be beamed back down so we'll be able to see it here. Is that
That's
right?
correct, exactly right.
And kind of briefly in the minute that we have or so, what's been the challenge? What's been the main challenge around this?
Well, there's been several challenges. I mean, there's a lot of engineering. This has got 8 cameras on it. It's got 4 computers. It's downloading a lot of data. It has to transmit that data back to the ground. It has actually 5 radio frequency sources sending different kinds of radio frequency information, for example, off to air traffic control in Moncton, in Boston. It actually has to tell us where it is in space, GPS coordinates. It actually has 4 ways of doing that, redundant methods, so if one fails, there's others available. Lots of engineering to be done. The engineering of this little contraption for the mirror has taken a lot of effort and time, a lot of experimentation, and then probably coordinating the entire group, getting us all to work together to arrive at this time, comfortable, confident that this is going to work just before the eclipse is taking place. That's been an ongoing effort and really has been headed by our project manager, Chris Doherty, who's done a great job of making this all happen. And then working with air traffic control, both in Canada and the United States, to allow us to do this launch in spite of the fact that there's airplanes flying around this area. So lots of organization to be done.
Lots of organization. It's going to be exciting to see it literally lift off, and we'll have video of that, hopefully coming to you live in the next little while. So,
that's right. That's exactly right.
Don, thank you so much for this.
You're most welcome.
Hillary, that's the latest here from the sunny New Brunswick.
Telescope has got the
Brett, thank you for this. Of course, like you say, a lot of people probably very, very happy that it is, in fact, sunny. But for now, thank you. The CBC's Brett Ruskin in Florenceville, Bristol, New Brunswick. And in Ontario, people in the Hamilton area are also awaiting the solar eclipse. Many are gathering at McMaster University to take in the celestial event. That's where we find the CBC's Justin Chandler, who joins us now live. So, Justin, it does appear to be a little bit cloudy, but tell us what you're seeing so far.
Yes, a little bit of clouds. The sun is just trying to peek out kind of behind the stadium right now. Right now at McMaster, they're still setting up. You can probably hear a little bit of music. They started playing that, I think, just to set the right exciting vibe for the eclipse. But folks are starting to line up now around the stadium. They're expecting, I think, 5,600 people here, something like that is the number of tickets that they've sold. And definitely in the city today, it's been busier than normal. Our newsroom for CBC Hamilton is on James Street North, and there were a lot more people out and about for lunchtime than usual. So I think definitely people in the city seem excited and ready to go for the eclipse, despite the fact that we don't have quite as much sun at this point as we'd like.
Okay, well, certainly let's hope that things change in the next few hours. But for now, thank you for this. The CBC's Justin Chandler in Hamilton. And CBC meteorologist Jay Scotland is in a prime viewing spot in Woodstock, PEI, and he joins us now. And Jay, it does appear that there is some sun there, but take us through the weather forecast. How's it looking for the eclipse?
Well, Hillary, it could not look better. That
this is not expected for PEI or any maritime province in early April. In fact, I was just looking at what the odds are of a clear sky, or at least seeing some sky in early April here on PEI. It is about a 70% chance of overcast conditions, between 60 and 70% chance for overcast conditions. And today, there is barely a cloud in the sky. We had some high cirrus cloud, kind of a thin veil earlier. Had folks here in Woodstock at the Mill River Resort, which a lot of folks have been renting rooms at to stay just to watch this eclipse, making the trip to Western PEI. And they're a little bit nervous, but it has been evaporating away, and we should be looking at a lot of blue sky by the time that eclipse gets underway, shortly before 3:30. Here where we are, path of totality, we'll see that around 4:37, complete darkness over this part of PEI, and we should be looking at about 2 to 3 minutes of totality here, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that the clear sky behind me stays that way, because this is certainly uncharacteristic of the shoulder seasons here on Prince Edward Island.
So like you say, some of those nerves are maybe evaporating. So talk to us about the excitement level, Jay.
Excitement level is very high. I mean, the last time we had a full eclipse, our total eclipse here on PEI across this region was all the way back in 1972. Carly Simon mentioned that in her song, You're So Vain. And then we had a partial eclipse in 2017, but this is going to be a total eclipse with a fairly clear sky. The whole island is excited about this because by nature of being Canada's smallest province, the path of totality is going to cover between 30 to over 40% of our province. And tip to tip, it's just a few hours drive. It doesn't take much to get into the path of totality here in terms of travel. So excitement is very high for that reason. This will not happen again here on PEI until 2079. I'll be 98 years old when the next total eclipse occurs here on Prince Edward Island. And I know the school kids are very excited. Every school student in the public school system here on PEI was actually sent home Friday and this morning as well, early dismissal, with a set of solar viewing glasses. So they're able to head up west and take in the show safely because that excitement level is very high, and luckily high pressure keeping the sky nice and clear.
Well, soak it in. Soak it all in for us, Jay. Thank you for this. That is CBC meteorologist Jay Scotland in Woodstock, PEI for us.
Play safe with our safer gambling tools, including deposit limits, SafeMate, and timeout.
Feel the fun, play Mojo. Hey, I'm gonna grab us some cold foam coffee. Wait, what? Cold foam coffee at home.
Try it. Right? It's International Delight. Cold foam.
It's foaming delicious is what it is. We're foaming baristas.
Foam and cream your coffee with International Delight Cold Foam. It's foaming delicious.
I will not forgive failure. God has chosen us as a new broom to sweep the Vatican clean of corruption.
What would you like to do with your life?
I'd like to be an international star.
Can I get a hug?
You're crying.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
Well, God will take his revenge then.
Yes, he will. With our help.
As eclipse enthusiasts take in today's show in the skies, many businesses on the ground will be thanking their stars for a bonanza. A myriad of enterprises have enjoyed a short but powerful burst of business from today's event. Jeannie Lee joins us now with more on that. So Jeannie, where is the sun shining down the most in terms of a business boost?
Well, Hillary, the sun will shine most where the sun will be hidden most by today's events. And that's because cities and towns along that path of totality or near it, so that you could be near totality, I guess, will enjoy the sudden throngs of visitors that we've been seeing. And they're, of course, jockeying for viewing positions and dropping a lot of money along the way. So let's take a look at what we're talking about. Here's the path of totality, of course. And on land, the most southern part would be Mazatlan in Mexico, which is then the path continues northeast along the U.S. and up into Newfoundland. And all along the path, of course, there will be a swath of spending. So here's what we're hearing out there. Mazatlan, for example, it is expecting 120,000 visitors and a $30 million U.S. boost to business. And Texas, big state there, a lot of the path is along that, over that state. The UTSA, University of Texas in San Antonio, predicts a $285 million boost to the state's economy. And of course, up here in Canada, we have Niagara Falls hotels, campsites, even parking lots, largely full, if not sold out, for weeks now. And AirDNA, we don't talk about this company very much, but it basically tracks short-term rentals, including Airbnb and others. And it says that along the path, rentals have tripled to 92% occupancy, which is 3 times what you would normally see at this time of the year. And there's a group called the Perryman Group. It analyzes economic effects in the U.S. and calls for a $6 billion boost to the U.S. economy alone today. Now, we reached out to the Bank of Montreal's chief economist, Douglas Porter, who always looks at these big, enthusiastic events and tries to gauge how much economic effect there is. And from Doug, actually, he says he doesn't think this will be an economic event in that it'll have any kind of major impact. It will draw in some extra visitors, he points out, but it could also be offset by people who are goofing off, not in school, not in work for some of the day, and so it all will be a wash. But obviously, he's talking about a whole. Generally, specifically, the businesses that are affected will, see bright eyes, I guess. I'm referring to the Bonnie Tyler song, of course, Total Eclipse of the Heart.
And most importantly, a big business boost, we hope, as well.
Mm-hmm,
okay,
yeah.
Jeannie, thanks for this.
You're welcome.
Okay, game on! I want to rip their heads off.
I'm actually done with him.
Oh my God! I'm glad that there's cameras around. Yeah, me too. Zoom it in, replay. There's no friends in competition. Woo! Let's go, baby!
You may know your family lived through the Great Depression. But if you explore the 1931 Canada Census on Ancestry, you could learn that it was thanks to your grandmother and her sister, working long hours at a cannery, that they all endured. Uncover more of your family story with the 1931 Census, now on Ancestry.ca.
That wasn't that bad, right?
It's fine. Do I have space?
Yes.
Keep turning.
Here you go.
I really don't think anybody saw. No? Yeah, no.
Don't let airborne allergens scare you. Arius provides fast relief of your 15 worst allergy symptoms, so you can love the air again. Arius.
This is what your ear looks like, filled with wax. Here's a cotton swab. Watch. It just pushes the wax in. Now here's Whoosh, the new, safe, and effective way to clean your ears. Just whoosh the wax out. That's insane. The triple stream safely clears dirt and wax buildup. It feels incredible. Get 15% off and free shipping at whoosh.ca.
Whether it's a last-second bake sale, Taco Tuesday, or a meal for your future in-laws, it's gonna be great. With Clubhouse quality by your side for over 130 years, it's gonna be great.
New Finish Ultramax, engineered for the toughest conditions. Dry burnt-on stains, old dishwashers, very hard water. New Finish Ultramax with Cycle Sync technology helps deliver the ultimate clean.
Canada's #1 musical and global sensation is Come From Away. It's a true story. Thousands of people stranded in a small town in Newfoundland on 9/11, and the locals, they opened up their homes. What happened that week? The kindness, the resilience, the joy reminds us all what it is to be human. Come From Away. Coming home to the Royal Alexandra Theatre this September. Book at Mirvish.com.
Sir, I can prove that my father was framed on his treason charge.
Constable Saul, once we pull this thread, we have to pull every thread. Are we on the same page?
Here's a look at Mazatlan on Mexico's Pacific coast. That's where the path of totality for today's solar eclipse will begin its journey across North America. Look at that. You can see just a little sliver. It's already started. The sun, of course, will be eclipsed. And we also want to take you to a live shot of Niagara Falls in Canada, where the path of totality will start near Lake Erie and then pass through. Also Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, PEI, and Newfoundland. We will have full coverage for you as CBC News special, The Eclipse in Canada. It all gets underway in just a few moments with hosts Andrew Nichols and Heather Hiscox. You can see it on CBC TV, CBC Gem, and of course, right here on CBC News Network.
Breaking news that shapes your world. Reporting from the scene onto your screens. It's news you can trust, delivered when you want, where you want. On Canada's News app. Download the free CBC News app.